Hey, it's Adam here, and you're watching The Culture Hack, where we're talking about how to create engaged workspaces that unlock the potential of your teams and drive your business forward in ways you've never seen. So stay tuned. Welcome to The Culture Hack. I'm your host, Adam Kolozetti, and today I have somebody from down south, our friend south of the border in the USA. We have Brad Voorhees, and he is the founder of ScaleTX, which is an HR consulting firm. Welcome, Brad. So glad you can make it on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. And for once, living in Michigan, have I been called somebody south of the border? That's normally when you live here in the north, you never get called or referred to in that term. So thank you very much. It feels great.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, let's talk about ScaleTX. Tell me about HR, what you do, how'd you get into it, all that type of stuff.
Sure. Well, I'll start with ScaleTX. So ScaleTX is a HR consulting firm that I started about 4 years ago. I just went into it full time just this past summer in 2023. What I do is I work with small to medium-sized businesses that either one of two things, either don't have any HR on staff at all, or if they do, it's somebody more junior that may excel at the tactical side of HR, answering benefit questions, could probably, manage an open enrollment if they wanted to, processing payroll, some reporting, and it would be hard to screw up an employee handbook, for example, but really struggles with the strategic side of HR, right? Which is creating a talent experience, a talent strategy, coming up with the best way to engage your employees, outlining how we're going to review performance moving forward, which HR technology should be using, does our total rewards align with our business goals? So a lot of people starting off in the field don't have exposure to those type of functions, right, and disciplines. So I can work as an advisor with those people that are on staff. Industry agnostic, but I love working with tech and manufacturing companies specifically, just because I have a deep passion for them, and that's where a lot of my experience comes from the corporate side. But service-based industries, construction, all that type of stuff, I would be glad to work with. So that's ScaleTX.
All right, I love it. ScaleTX. I love the idea of the total benefits, or kind of looking big picture. What is the best way to engage your organization, right? There's no one answer that you can pull out of a textbook for any organization, right?
Right, absolutely. So again, if I just kind of put myself, rewind the clock 16 years ago, when somebody starts their first HR job and it's at a small business, in a lot of cases, you are reporting to the owner, co-owner, president of the company, right? And what's most important for a new HR generalist to take over? Essentially, it's to take over payroll so people can continue to get paid on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. Get introduced to your benefits broker, for example. So if employees come up to you and have questions about, is this covered under my insurance, and what is my deductible, and how much am I paying towards this? So these are the types of things that junior HR people are immediately exposed to, because those are things that every small business needs to have answers to so the business can continue to run. But everything else that I talked about, from total rewards to engagement, a brand new HR generalist isn't learning that stuff from the owner or the founder of the company, right? In terms of, the people that I work with. So they really need to just learn it from experience or mentorship and guidance from people who have sat in those seats before. So that's where I like to really help.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk a little bit about, the engagement piece, but first, from your experience and your perspective, what does engagement mean to you in the context of an organization?
Right. And, I'm glad that you said that it can mean a lot of different things to different people, because I'm sure my opinion is not universally accepted. But when I think about the workplace and I think about employee engagement, I think for the longest time, and still up until today, workers versus workplaces think about this as a very transactional relationship, right? I show up to work, employee, and I do my job. And employer says, you show up to work, do your job, and I give you a paycheck. That's a transactional, one-for-one relationship, right? I do something and you give me something in return. So this concept of employee engagement goes beyond just the transaction for me, right? It's creating a work environment where you feel both inspired and motivated to do the best work that you possibly can on a daily basis. And motivation is really a external factor, right? Where somebody can motivate you to do your best. And so is being inspired. Somebody can inspire you to do your best. And as HR people departments at organizations, our job is to supply that inspiration and that motivation for people to do their best. Because what we know is that it's been proven time and time again, organizations that have the highest engagement rate, right? EMPS, engagement is measured in other ways as well, that organizations that have the highest engagement rate amongst their people are the most profitable, have the strongest retention with their employees. If they're a public company, their shares are worth the most. There is all of these financial benefits that a company can be a benefactor of by having good employee engagement. So it's my opinion that it's HR responsibility to both create an inspiring and a motivating work environment for their employees. And to me, that is engaging with an employee that goes beyond just the transactional relationship.
I love that. I love that idea of, you want your people to feel like they're part of something larger than themselves, right?
That's right.
It's the idea of like, you pay them, you'll get 80%, but they could volunteer 200 or 250, like, right? If they're excited and want to be there. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're working overtime. It means they're passionately thinking and engaged, right? So
right.
Easier said than done. There are some obstacles to driving that engagement. Do you have any stories of clients you've worked with to try and create that good mojo within the company?
Yeah, absolutely. And first, what you have to do is you have to find out what your client, when you're working on a consulting basis, what your client wants to accomplish, right? Because they may say, we want high employee engagement. Okay, what does that mean? If they are satisfied with just an internal survey saying that they are now officially a certified engaged employer, then right, I guess we could go down that route. But it's my job to really show, one, how long it will take if you want to do a turnaround and a transformation in terms of engaging your workforce, right? Because it does take a long time. It can't happen overnight. So yeah, so I have stories where I have gone into a client and they've said, hey, we don't have an engaged workforce. Okay, well, how do you know? Well, because we've taken internal polling before. Okay, let me see that internal polling. And what I've noticed is the questions aren't really going deep, right? It's just, how happy are you with your job? How satisfied are you with your job? Would you ever be willing to work past 5 o'clock if so-and-so. So reading these kind of results, I'm like, yeah, all right, well, number one, you're not asking the right questions. And then number two, you are correct. You most likely have a workforce that's not engaged at all. So what we do there is we transform kind of the survey to get a baseline, right? The personal favorite, I enjoy going into employee net promoter score, which I'm sure you and your listeners are familiar with, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer a friend to work at your organization, right? That's like kind of, to me, and there's a lot of others, but to me that like is the ultimate litmus test, right? And you look for promoters, people that score a 9 or a 10. And then you got your passives, which are scores of 7 or 8. And then you've got your detractors, which is scoring 6 or below. And you figure out your ENPS by taking your promoters, removing your passives, and subtracting your detractors, and coming up with a percentile there. And we know the most successful organizations have ENPS ratings of 40+%. So being able to survey and find out those questions, I'm also a fan of using pulse surveys, which randomizes survey questions. And so again, now we have all of this data, right? This is all to just point out that now you have all of this data. So somebody from my vantage point can actually advise now and consult. This is what we plan on doing. And this is, I tell you what, this is where so many organizations, this is the Achilles heel of their engagement programs. You know how many times, Adam, that I can remember off the top of my head, executive teams just taking that data and then just it's sitting on their desk, or them discussing it internally within a group. What does that do? What does that do to anything? What good does that create, right? And so now that we have this data, it's like, all right, folks, now's the fun part. Now we create programs that will actively target to fix some of these issues. If this data is showing us that there is a lack of trust between employees and leadership, so what is that impacting? That's most likely impacting inspiration, and that's most likely impacting motivation. If there's a lack of trust between the workforce and the CEO, for example, what are we going to do to build that trust back up? Does the CEO need to have more town halls, more of an open door policy, communicate updates weekly, do a mentorship program, do bi-monthly kind of group coffee chats, whatever the case may be, just so people know that the CEO isn't some man or woman at the end of the hallway sitting in a closed office, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, these are things that if you want to change employee engagement at your company and you have all of this data, don't sit on it. Some of the greatest programs that I've ever created has become strictly because of the data that we've reviewed and then re-questioned those same questions months later after the new programs. Mm-hmm. And by golly, we see improvement within the results. Isn't that such a novel concept? It's like, oh my God, right?
Right.
And so, but this is the Achilles heel of employee engagement programs, is they take the surveys, they gather all of this data and then do nothing with it. And then they're surprised if months later or 6 months later, they ask for the same survey and it's actually worse. Because guess what? You didn't do anything with it for the last 6 months.
Oh, I've been there before. I've filled out the survey and then a year later the same one comes, and then the second time I'm like, whatever.
Right. Absolutely. So, I mean, I have transformed workplace flexibility policies, total rewards, performance management systems, talent experience, all because of all of this data. And that is all impacted employee engagement in a positive light.
I love that. So what are you noticing looking to the future? Like, are the C-suite leadership, are they becoming more excited about using this data for and actually investing in programming? Are they, trying to bring their turnover numbers down, or is it more of the same? Like, are you seeing any sort of shift or change as we go to the future?
So number one, as it relates to this specific field of HR, there are two top issues that are so clear in terms of what are top priorities from the CEO level, the C-suite level, right? As it relates to HR, performance management and retention of employees.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we know we're in a global downturn economically right now, employers are much more keen to squeeze out every bit of performance optimization out of their current staff before they throw more money into hiring somebody new, and a net new hire, right? So we know that employers want to squeeze more out of their current staff before they make the decision to add to payroll. So that is currently a large concern right now. Additionally, employee retention is a large concern right now. There's companies that, of course, are hiring, but hiring just in general is down. I can speak for the tech sector here in the US is even though we're early in 2024, a lot of individuals continue to lose their jobs in the first 6 weeks of the year that work in the tech sector, which is unfortunate. So hiring is down, and then companies want to keep their employees. So retention is key. And who better to handle those two initiatives, performance management and employee retention, than the HR team?
Right. Okay. I love that. So really, you're saying is you guys are there to solve the two key problems that C-suite are worried about in terms of human resourcing.
Human capital. Yeah. In terms of human capital, that's it. It's performance management and employee retention. And this has been backed up by data. Surveys, right? A ton of external surveys have come out and said this is what CEOs are looking for. So, when I kind of going back to employee engagement and programming, there's not much of an appetite right now to add to, because companies in general don't want to add cost. And a lot of times, right, when you're trying to fix something, there's usually a cost to it. That's just kind of how it goes, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not very keen to add cost and add something like that with programming. But that's not to say that will never be the case again. That was the case, but I think that once it turns back around, and it will, of course, that companies are going to start investing in those initiatives again.
Okay, I love it. Well, you heard it here first. It's kind of like HR by the numbers. Use the data, right? Yeah. I want to say thank you so much, Brad. I hope people listening found some real gems in what you're talking about. Yeah. And they can, of course, check below, where we'll have links to Brad's website and his contact info and all that kind of stuff. But thanks so much, Brad. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. It's been great being here, and thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for watching The Culture Hack. Do you want to chat culture and engagement? Give us a call and come on the show.